I'm joined here in our Nairobi studio by Mathius Muindi, an independent political risk analyst based here in Nairobi, specializing on the Horn of Africa and Great Lakes regions. Mathius, always a pleasure to have you with us. This, of course, as we understand, is a very significant development. The capture of this town from Al-Shabaab, considered a major blow for the terror group. But on the other hand, just how significant a victory is this for AMISOM and Somali forces?
It is a psychological blow to the militant group Al-Shabaab, considering that they have been in control of this town for a number of years. When you look at the region of Lower Shabelle in southern Somalia, that is the heartland of Al-Shabaab. So for them to lose a key town like this, it's something which represents a psychological blow. On the other hand, Lower Shabelle is also an agricultural heartland. So the fall of the town could also disrupt, food supplies to these fighters, and it could also cripple financial inflows for the militants, because they engage in, taxation of local farmers who are based around the town.
So what you're saying then is that this is not only a psychological blow for Al-Shabaab, but also a financial one. Just talk us through some of the other local sources of funding beyond agriculture that these militants are relying on.
The biggest source of funding for Al-Shabaab in southern Somalia has always been trading in charcoal and illegal taxation of anybody doing business in southern Somalia. They control the regions of Lower Shabelle and Jubaland, which are some of the agriculturally rich areas of Somalia. So if anybody is doing business in these regions, they are likely to come across Al-Shabaab checkpoints which demand a certain percentage, and that is what has been used to fund operations by the group, considering that international restrictions on financial inflows into Somalia have restricted external funding for the group.
So in a sense, though, to choke the funding of Al-Shabaab indeed is important for AMISOM forces, for the Somali armed forces, but we've still seen that Al-Shabaab is able to carry out some very powerful, very brazen attacks throughout the country. How do we balance this progress and at the same time defeat?
One of the biggest changes of strategy by Al-Shabaab happened when they lost Mogadishu a couple of years ago. When they lost Mogadishu, after that they started, withdrawing, or maybe tactically leaving the key cities like Ismail in the south. What they did instead was to go and have cells, based around these cities, which they can later use to infiltrate and carry out these attacks. The attacks you see in Mogadishu and the attacks you have seen in Kismayo in the last 1 month are attacks carried by cells which have been infiltrating these cities. The other element is that when you look at the sophistications of some of the attacks you see in Mogadishu, they indicate a level of infiltration also of the Somali security forces, who could maybe be sharing intelligence with some of the members of Al-Shabaab.
And when you consider the role that AMISOM has played in this particular development and, of course, in other operations that the two have been working on together, when will we see the point that Somali armed forces are able to fight this insurgency completely alone and without the assistance of AMISOM?
It is coming close to 10 years since AMISOM went into Somalia, and there's been a lot of financial and military investment into the Somali security forces, but they have not been able to be in a position whereby they can defeat this insurgency. So as AMISOM starts the process of drawing down in terms of its operation in Somalia, possibly the next thing they need to think is about having a political discussion with the moderate elements in Al-Shabaab and see whether they can come to a consensus and have a government which can run that country. Because we have seen in 10 years, the military option has largely failed to defeat Al-Shabaab.
And yet at the same time, the pulling out of AMISOM forces might be seen as an opportunity for Al-Shabaab. A complicated situation indeed. Thank you so much, Mathius Muindi, joining us here in our Nairobi studio.